Right, I'm going to demonstrate the use of an OD LVCM gauge. You'll notice that there is writing here that tell you that this is the appropriate base. There's only one LVCM, OD LVCM base, and the correct sized insert. This is a 3.855, and this is just for demonstration purposes. It may not be exactly what's prescribed for this cup, but it's working for us right now. So there's a G number and a D number that will identify the insert, and typically things of various sizes will have their own specifically designated insert. So you'll notice that it's a little bit different if you have any familiarity with the ID gauge. It's a little bit different as the handle is down underneath to make contact with the indicator, and I'm going to operate it correctly, which is pushing down on it and pushing it forward and then letting it go. Push down on it, push it forward, let it go. And with that, we always want to make the measurement 2 times because the first time basically sets the cup. We'll say we'll just put this cup on just for GP, and we'll say it's not touching the pins. It will be pushed back onto the pins for the first operation, and it will center it, and everything will be set up for the measurement. That's why you never take the first measurement. The second measurement, push down just like you did the first, push up, let it go, and then you would send your data. If you had your button connected and everything, you'd send your data, and then we do rotate 180 degrees, and what I'm using is the embossing on the bottom of the cup, just rotating it 180 degrees or opposite what it was. 1 to set it, 2 to send it. Boom, done. So I do want to demonstrate a very important thing. You'll notice as the shaft on the indicator moves up, the what's indicated is larger, which correlates to what we want it to do. But there is a trick to this, and we want to make sure that it's set correctly. So it's called the direction. So we want to hit the mode button until we see mode pop up. And we want to hit this button until we see DIR. More calc, tolerance, resolution, DIR. And you'll notice it's flashing DIR. I'm going to hit the center button. You should be able to, you'll notice over the top of the D there's a down arrow, and what that's telling me is it's setting the direction. We want to make sure that the arrow is not present, and then we're just going to back out by pressing and holding the left button. If we put the arrow on, pointing down, it's telling me, it says that it's going the opposite direction, which is not correct. So you'll notice that it does go down, and I am measuring the value on my puck, 3.8803, has zeroed correctly, and as I push the button to move it out, it's indicating that it's larger there. So that tells me that have the right direction. I'm going to demonstrate the disassembly and the reassembly process at some point of the OD LVCM gauge. This is the insert part, and I would recommend you take this off first. So in order to do that, I am going to, these are quarter 20 flathead fasteners, and I'm using should be a 5/32 Allen wrench to remove them. Now you'll notice I'm just kind of loosening right now, so I can get a better advantage on these. You're also going to have to, this is a retainer block that retains the handle in position and the insert in position. This will also most likely need to be loosened just to get the insert out. Same Allen wrench, same fastener sizes. Alright, now that's loose. Once these have been removed, the insert should pop right out. And most of these inserts have little thumbnail places where you can actually put something in there and lift them out if you had to. But most of the time, once you loosen this back block, it comes right out. So there's the insert. There's the base. And we're going to go ahead and remove the bottom block for the handle. All right. Now I'm going to flip this so that you can see. This pops right out, and there's, make sure you don't try to lift it up or pop the handle, just stride it forward and then pull it off. So we're going to continue the disassembly process, and it's important at this step that you turn the base on its side, just like this, so that you can see all of the equipment underneath where you have access to it. So we're going to start the removal of the piston cartridge and the cover, which you'll see why that was put there once I remove it. Remove these. These don't have to be absolutely locked down as if you know, torqued down or anything like that, but they do need to be in place and secured. So hand tight should be good enough. And I'm going to have to make sure that these are loosened so that this plate can come out. And if not, I just loosen this and remove it, and this plate will come out at that point in time. But there it is. There's the plate. Now I do want to show you something while we have this open. The reason that panel is there is so that you can have everything in place and that you can actually secure the band around the bottom of the handle with the piston in position without having to have it fully disassembled. It's just that area that covers that. So if you had a band pop or whatever, you can put the cartridge in and then secure the band around the bottom of the handle in this position, and then put the plate back on. So we'll go ahead and remove the cartridge cover. Probably kind of helps to have some type of a container nearby so where you can put all of your fasteners in. Keep everything organized. And we will move those out of the way. And we are going to start the cartridge removal. So what I want to do is take the band and remove it off of the handle, which I was showing you earlier, that it goes around this, and there's a little notch here that the band would sit in. But I'm going to go ahead and remove the handle from the top, being very gentle with it, making sure that I don't destroy anything. And that's what the handle looks like. This handle is, the paddle itself is just so that people don't get sore thumbs. You can apply the pressure to a broader area. But you'll notice that there is a reinforcement rib on the bottom of this handle. If you have a different handle in there, you shouldn't be using it because it will break if someone uses it incorrectly, much more likely. So this is very rigid, and you'll notice this is a little floppy, and the reason for that is that it doesn't require the mechanical reinforcement because it's basically just pushing the tip forward and back. So again, this is what it's supposed to look like, and this is the notch that I was discussing. Whenever we put the band on and everything, the band goes around this notch. So we're going to go ahead and remove the cartridge from this. And there's the cartridge assembly itself. Band goes around the head on that, and you'll notice there's nothing in here now. It's all clear. So back to just showing the top side, you should be able to see all the way through it once you've removed the cartridge. And our next step is going to be removal of the indicator. So I'm going to demonstrate the removal of the indicator. You'll notice there's a large slot in the back top side. There's the indicator, there's the lug mount back. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. It shouldn't require a lot of jimmying around. There's plenty of room in this thing, so I'm going to loosen it. T-handles are best on these, but just showing you how to use it if you got a basic L-set Allen wrench. And I'm going to reach around to the front to secure that so that it doesn't fall forward and damage the indicator while I'm loosening this up. And I'm going to pull it forward. There's a little washer in here. I'm going to point to it. I want to make sure that we pull that and don't lose it because it is important to put that in place. So I'm going to demonstrate how to remove the tip, and there's an extension on this as well, and you need to keep those because they are required. So I put this cross member through a hole here in the indicator shaft so that whenever I do remove the fastener, that I'm not twisting the shaft and damaging the internals of the indicator. So put this I'm going to go ahead and screw this out. And there's the fastener. So there is an extension here, and we want to make sure that we don't touch the shaft below the extension with any tool, because that will damage the indicator and you'll have to get a new one. But take this extension and a little twist, and it should screw right out. And there's the extension. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is the stop collar on the end of every piston that we're going to be putting out moving forward. So you're going to need to understand how to set this. There's a distance when these are together that snaps in, and the top of the tip of the piston needs to touch this block. The stop lock is basically going to be set in position so that it's putting pressure up against the back side, and the front end of the tip is putting pressure on the front side. And I have a broken handle here just to help me set the spacing. So we'll snap this in, pull it back. You'll notice that the stop collar, I'm going to push it forward. Stop collar is in place here. So I'm pushing forward on the cartridge housing so that the head of the piston is touching this block, and I'm going to tighten the stop collar as I pull back a little bit and tighten the stop collar so that the collar is is up against this back tab, and that the head of the piston is touching this little square block like this, so that when we do put it in place, you don't see any significant movement back and forth inside. So I'm going to demonstrate the reassembly of the indicator with the extension and the tip on this end. So we're going to go ahead and get our tools in place by putting an Allen wrench through that hole. And then we are going to, without touching the shaft, we're going to put the extension on. The extension also acts as an adapter, but we can get into that. And I put it on hand tight. Now when I say hand tight, I mean hand tight, but it's nothing that you need to put a tool on, or you shouldn't have to put a tool on. Just make sure that it's secure and it's not going to rotate. We'll go ahead and get our screw. This is an M2.5, and you'll notice there's a beveled edge or a countersink, and then there's a flat countersink on the other side, or counterbore, excuse me. So when we put this on, we want to make sure that our tool is in place behind, and we want to make sure that the flat side, the counterbore side, is towards the indicator shaft, and we're going to put that there. And then we're going to put our retaining hardware in, and we're going to put this in. And what we want to make sure of before we tighten anything down is that the bottom of the tip, you'll notice it's square, is parallel to the bottom of the lug back, so that it goes straight up and out, so it's perpendicular in orientation to the rest of the indicator. And I'll show you what I mean by that once I have it in place. So if you take a look at the indicator bottom and the tip, they should be parallel to one another as much as possible. I want to make sure that that's a good visual for you. Yeah, that makes sense. Straight up and down, parallel to the bottom of the lug. So I'm going to demonstrate the installation of the indicator onto the OD LVCM base. This can be a little bit tricky, but I want to make sure that everybody does it the same way as closely as possible, so that it's a little easier. If you set it up so that you can see the front and the back, but on its end, you take the indicator, and this is why we do it this way. There's a washer. The washer has got to be in place because we need the spacing, if that makes sense. And then we will take the indicator and we will put it over the washer as we do the installation. And then we will drop our 1/4 20 socket head cap screw on, appropriate size Allen wrench, and start tightening that down. T-handles are a little bit easier to use, but in this case it's the L handle or the L Allen wrench. And we want to continue to tighten that until we feel it not being loose. We want to look in the front to make sure that it's straight, just to give you a visual representation. Make sure that it's hanging straight down and not off to one side or the other as you tighten it, because it will straighten itself out. You just want to make sure that it is up and down that channel right in the middle. And then we are going to put a little pressure on that, hand tight, snug, I should say, hand snugged. And notice that there's no movement up front, and looks secure here, and the washer's underneath. So now what I'm going to demonstrate is the reinstallation of the cartridge itself that holds the piston in place. So again, you want the orientation of the base on its side, because it's going to make it much easier to be able to get to where you need to get. And I'm going to go ahead and install the band. And again, the band installation needs to be such that it is flat in the grooves that are cut into the side of the cartridge, and that there aren't any twists. If there are any twists, it may interfere with being able to do the installation correctly. So we're going to go ahead and put this in, and it goes to, if I have to, sometimes I might have to pull the band a little bit to get that to move easily. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about band impingement. So when something's grabbing the band and holding it, it may make it difficult to install the cartridge. So have it like this, and then we put in the 440 screws in the bottom. Oh, sorry, and it's Phillips on these, so that we can put that into place. And don't put them in tight, and I'll show you why when we get to the actual cover that goes in this space. Now I'm going to demonstrate, and this is a tricky part of this demonstration, but I'm going to demonstrate how to install the handle. So just looking at it from the top, you can see my piston is down here, and I am just going to snap that in place and try to get it behind. Okay, so don't do anything else with this thing until once you put that down, but I'm going to show you the orientation. And again, back to, this is why we flip it on its side. If you look inside where this cartridge cover is going to go, there is the handle, which has a rectangular piece, and then you have a rectangular piece that's forked in the middle. The shaft of the piston goes inside that forked piece, and the head that we installed earlier when we did the spacing, this little stop collar, goes against this piece here with the fork in it. It goes against that. And the top of the piston shaft should be resting against this rectangular piece here with no fork. And you can kind of see from the bottom, if I move it forward and back, that it's captured and it's in the proper position. Now the tricky part's going to be getting the band around the rectangular piece, and the way that we've learned to do this is that we put one of our tools inside and we stretch the band forward and make sure that it's around the square piece with the little ledge on it, and the band goes in the ledge. And if you've installed it properly without pushing the handle too hard, you can kind of see when I push it forward, it pulls it back with the band. That is the action you want. So the reason that I said keep this loose is this piece when we put it in. You'll notice that these holes only line up one way. When we look at the cover, you'll notice that they're a little bit off here, and you can't put the screws in. You notice this. But if we do it the right way, they are aligned. And so this is the correct way to put it in. You got a short side and a long side. Short side goes towards your cover. the cartridge, excuse me, and the long side goes towards the front. So we're going to put this in just like that, and then we're going to put the retaining hardware in. And now I'm going to tighten the screws on the cartridge now that everything is in place. These screws should be just snugged in. You put any torque on them, there's no need for that torque except for to hold the cartridge in place so it's not just floating around inside. No movement, no movement. Good. So I'm going to demonstrate now the installation of the handle retainer, and you don't want to operate the handle a whole lot without putting this in place, because what will happen is that the handle will pop off of where it's secured to the piston. So when we put this in place, that'll prevent that. And we'll get the appropriate hardware and put it in place. And we don't want to tighten these down just yet, because we're going to need a little bit of wiggle room when we put the insert in, because that insert fits to this pretty tightly. It's supposed to, works well. The other thing to kind of make sure of whenever you're going through this process of reassembling is if you have opportunity, clean this surface well, especially up where you see there's a corner. Clean everything off of that, because the debris that's in there can actually probably cause some measurement issues, and I would make sure that it is actually clean before you put it in place. So I'm going to put the insert in now. This is practically one step. You'll notice that the opening on the insert is to the top. I'm holding it that way on purpose so that when I do the installation, I'm not going to damage anything, and then I'll try to straighten this out and I'll let it go down. And now I'm going to put the retaining hardware on the insert. And these fasteners do not need to be absolutely tightened down like with a torque wrench, but they need to be snug. So always that last little twist to make sure that it is secure to that base. And once the screws or the fasteners are in place and snugged down for the insert, you can now snug down the retaining base for the handle. And you should be able to operate it and see that smooth of an operation as soon as you've reassembled it. So I'm going to demonstrate why we want to reset this and re-zero it once we've reassembled it. Number one, everything's moved around from where you set your reference point with your master before. And we want to make sure that it is remastered so that any changes that we made and repositionings that we did are going to be accounted for by doing that remastering. So I'll put my master on, and I make sure that I have it oriented. I like to have my writing up just because when I orient it, I know that it's going to be consistent. So it should be consistent no matter what. And I'm going to take a look, and that value is very different than what it was before. It's reading 3.8924. It should be reading 3.8803. Now I've already got that value programmed in, so all I need to do is press and hold. You'll see the P flash, and it'll bring up this value and this value, which they match, and I'm going to just press it momentarily. And now I'm set correctly, and I don't see any movement, which is good. And one of the other things that I will discuss really quick is measuring the cups themselves. One of the ways that you can tell there might be something wrong with the LVCM gauge is whenever you do your measurements, if you see changes of greater than 1/1000th of an inch when you do a measurement, something's going on. So like I said, 1, 2 to make sure it's seated, 3.8905. I should be able to see that within a thou when I do my next measurement. So I'm going to rotate it. And the reading is going to be a little bit different, but it needs to be stable. 3.8906, 3.8909, 3.8909, 3.8909. You want to make sure that you're getting consistent, repeatable measurements just to make sure that there's nothing loose and there's nothing floating around in here. And if it's put together correctly, you should get repeat numbers like I just demonstrated.